Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sal, and today we're going to be covering this Friday slate in NBA DFS. We have a 9-game slate today. So yesterday we had the crappy 2-game slate. Didn't do a video on it. I've been traveling the last few days, so I didn't do it in the past 2 days. But we'll be back. We'll be steady for the foreseeable future now. But yeah, we got 6 to 9 game slates for pretty much like the next week plus. The ideal slates in my mind are 6 to 8. 9 pretty much falls into that category as well. So I'm excited to break down into it today. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Sal. Like I said, I cover DFS, daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, and what will be the MLB streets, as well as some other niche things, sports betting, player props, things like that when they do pop up. But for right now, our focus is on this NBA slate today. I have strategy videos on lineup construction, how to be contrarian, overall strategy in NBA DFS. I have a whole playlist on that, few videos in there. You should check it out if you're new here. And like this video, especially if you're a returning subscriber, you know how much you mean to me. We're now over 3,000 subscribers. And once I get home in 2 days, I'm going to be working out a giveaway for that. So definitely like this video if you're returning, like it if you're new here. It helps me move up the rankings, helps a lot more people notice me. Comment down below your favorite parts of these videos as well. I'm always looking to improve them, whether it's the data, whatever it might be, and consider subscribing throughout. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get going. The first one is Patreon. So as you guys know, if you've been watching, I've been just talking about Patreon, and it's been growing quite a bit. We now have 36 people on Patreon subscribe pledge. They call them pledges on Patreon. And what you get is my NBA projections. You can get whether you want Draftkings or FanDuel. It's for NBA. I'll be doing MLB and NFL as well. You can get both. You can get coaching calls. And what the player projections are, they're pretty much right here. And you can see that those were the points right here for the people today. They're going to change throughout the day. I haven't really updated these yet. But yeah, you can see they're sorted right now by position. I could sort them by value, whatever it is. You just get a ton of data. So if I do and I go and I sort this, and not only do you get data in one place, let's sort it by salary. You get data in one place. You're getting the salaries, target value, their usage rates, minutes per game, my projected minutes for them. Use a couple of different sites as well as my own input. The team, their defense versus position, which is an algorithm that I made up or created. And then game pace, you're going to get all these, the team season pace, their differentials for the pace, game totals, team totals, points per game. And then you start to get your projected points per minute, projected points, and projected value, which I won't show you just because these are updated. They'll be updated throughout the day multiple times based on injury news. But I don't want to show people that because there are 36 patrons right now who, thank you so much. You're supporting pretty much me trying to get all of my student debt eliminated, which is a very uphill battle. But if we do grow the Patreon page, it's good. So if you want the help right here, you can get them over here, $7.99, which is very, very, I would say, cost friendly for you guys in terms of what you're getting. Most sites charge anywhere from $20 to $80 for projections. Obviously, they'll have some more things on there because they're a full company, not a one-man show. But for $7.99, I think it's definitely worth it. And you could ask some of the people who are already in the Discord if you would like, which is the second thing that I just want to cover before we get started is the Discord. It's just pretty much a website. It's also an app. We just chat in there nonstop. So NBA, there's already people up and talking about it, already showing their results from last night. People doing great last night. Pretty much every night people do great. Obviously, some people don't. But yeah, the Discord's just a free chat. If you do the projections, you will get the projection access. So we already have, now we're up to 246. So the last time I did a video, we were at like 200. So this is incredible. So make sure to hop in the Discord. It's free. The link's down below. We talk all things sports, fantasy sports, NASCAR, NHL, general talking about just DFS strategy, obviously the NBA. So definitely hop into there. For sure, I'm in there active all the time. This week been a little less active, only a couple times a day, just because of the traveling, but definitely going to be more active in there as I get back to school tomorrow. So let's hop down into it. So we'll start off like we always do with the injury dashboard. Usually I give you guys the impacted players. I'll kind of touch on those as we go through. Just wanted to save as much time as possible this morning and get this video out. So in terms of the impacted players, and let's filter this by team really quickly. So we'll filter it just so you guys can see what's happening with each team individually by column B. So a couple of big things actually jump out right at the top looking at Utah with Ricky Rubio and Raul Neto. So Neto's, he's out. And that's kind of big because Ricky Rubio's doubtful. Neto would be the spot fill-in point guard. But now with no Exum out there, with no Neto, with no Rubio, it starts to become interesting as to who really is going to be the point guard on this team. We can go over to Draftkings quickly and we can just sort out the remaining point guards if that's what you guys really want to look at real quick. Just because I want to make sure of something, because the last time that this happened, they had all their point guards, their backup point guards just pretty much out. And if we go to Utah, it was pretty much a Donovan Mitchell show at point guard and Joe Ingles, which is very interesting. So yeah, Nito's out. Grayson Allen got no run last time. Exum is questionable, but I would consider him being out, or lean on him to be out. So what you're going to get here is you're going to get a guy in Joe Ingles and Donovan Mitchell who are going to be controlling the point. I would imagine that Mitchell starts at the point position, but whenever Mitchell wasn't on the floor, and it was a decent amount of the time, and even when he was, Joe Ingles took over the point. Ingles, a guy who's seeing around 31 minutes a game, somewhere around there. I expect him to see around 34 today. And he's going to get point guard minutes. And if you guys are new here, you haven't been keeping up with the way that I like to play the game, centers and point guards are my favorite way to go about daily fantasy sports, getting as many of them into your lineups as possible. Centers just score the most points flat out because they have more opportunities, closer to the rim, putbacks, blocks, easier double-double chances. Same things for point guards, except they're going to get more assists. Last time that Rubio was out and Nito was out and Exum was out, pretty much last week, we saw that Joe Ingles went for 40-plus fantasy points because he had a double-double with like 12 assists because he was controlling the point. A lot of things that people didn't notice because it was a 10:30 game at night. I was up watching it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't notice. That's why Popcorn Machine is nice to look at. And watching the games in NBA actually does have somewhat of a factor because you catch on to those things. When guys are getting 10 more minutes at the point guard position, it's pretty big because they have the upside to go for an extra 5 assists, which in fantasy is an extra 7.5 points. So it's pretty good. So that's the show. If Ricky Rubio is indeed out, I do like Joe Ingles quite a bit more. Mitchell also gets a bump in terms of maybe 1 or 2 more minutes and more point guard usage. Terrence Ross, he's now off the injury report. He's probable. So the show out there with Evan Fournier, he's a better cash play. I would say Terrence Ross gives you upside off the bench for a GPP. And Isaac has been starting at the 4 for the past week or 2 now. Just all those guys in that range of the shooting guards for Orlando. It makes it a little challenging all the time to see who you want to play. I usually stay away from Ross in all formats, especially on the 9-game slate. I think you can go elsewhere. So more big news for New Orleans now. So Drew Holiday is supposed to miss 7 to 10 days now with an abdominal injury. So this is huge for Elfrid Payton. Drew Holiday was the shooting guard. Payton was the point guard. Payton was already playing great, right? Getting 30 to 33 minutes a game, going for pretty much 30 fantasy points every single night. Now you can kind of shoe him in for close to 34 minutes without Drew Holiday and all of the ball handling duties. I would imagine since they got rid of Penn State's own, shout out Penn State, Tim Frazier, they got rid of him about a week ago, that you're going to get Frank Jackson at the 2 starting in place of Drew Holiday, which is going to be excellent value for this slate. I would imagine Frank Jackson gets close to 30 minutes. I would put him in as of right now in my projections. I have him in for about 28 to 28 and a half. So Drew Holiday being out is big, especially today before the salaries catch up to him being out. They're not caught up there yet, so you're going to get discounts on Elfrid Payton based on the minutes that he'll be playing all at point guard now that Drew Holiday is out, who would control some of that. And you're going to get a pretty big discount on a guy like Frank Jackson, who, if you want to know his exact price, we can quickly go over, and I believe he is $3,200. So Frank Jackson just becomes, at 28 minutes today, just an absolute great value. Not the greatest of matchups against Kyle Lowry, who just does shut down some players in Toronto in general. Very good defensive team. But at 3,200, a lot of that just starts to become irrelevant in terms of just their pricing and things like that. E'Twaun Moore's out, so what this is going to do, I mean, not much, but it'll increase the minutes for a guy like Kendrick Williams. It'll also increase the minutes for a guy like Frank Jackson, since Moore was playing a lot of shooting guard as of late. Kendrick Williams, his price is low too. He's only $4,000 over on Draftkings, and he should see mid to low 30s in minutes. At $4,000, it's another good value. So New Orleans has a lot of good value due to some of these injuries, especially obviously Drew Holiday. Jahlil Okafor is questionable today. You're going to get Anthony Davis playing 20 minutes. If Okafor is out, more value opens up with Cheick Diallo, a guy who's usually been stable. Last time out, only saw a few minutes in terms of, I think, 13, 14. Didn't do great, but he's always an option. For Miami, Goran Dragic's questionable. If he plays, I imagine him to get around 24, 25 minutes. Nothing that I want to touch if he does play, but if he's out, it makes guys like Justice Winslow and Dion Waiters that much better, seeing around 30 minutes without that guard depth. Avery Bradley and Justin Holiday are both questionable, both pretty bad players. They're both going to see low to mid 30s in minutes, though. So in cash, especially at $3,500 for Holiday, $4,700 for Bradley, cheap guys on DraftKings, you can get them in there. Just never guys that in cash I feel comfortable playing. More so Bradley in a tournament if it's leverage off of somebody else in that same price range. And what leverage means is just if a guy's 30% owned and Bradley's only 5% owned and they're in the same price range, so it's an easy switch for you in terms of your lineup construction. In tournaments, if that guy's really chalky and you don't feel great about him, you could swap. So here's the thing about NBA DFS. Your lineups for cash in tournaments can be very similar. You can build a super chalky lineup, put it into a GPP, and you could win. What's optimal probably if you're not entering 150 lineups or if you're doing single entry, build a super chalky lineup that is good chalk, not bad chalk. How do you determine that? Well, you have to know the game of basketball. You have to know, are these players good? Are their stats good? I can't just magically give you an equation to determine if a player is good or not at his price. But build a very chalky lineup and then pivot one player. So pivot a very highly chalky guy, whichever one you don't feel as comfortable about, and just pivot them to somewhere else. And that's kind of the way that you can go about that. You just pivot to somebody else in that same price range who does have similar upside, or at least some nights should have similar upside. You look at it as an odds game. So if he's 35% owned and somebody's 5% owned, you're getting 7-1 odds on the 5% guy. If you get that in any sport, you're probably betting on it, because if they're in the same price range, it means that they probably have similar chances to go off, barring some injury or something that's going to give them more minutes. So you should always take those greater odds, because if they do come out, you're getting great value. One, because they're just not as owned, and two, that you're going to pass a ton more guys because people don't have him, which is where the value comes from. Wilson Chandler is going to make his start for the Clippers today, who have been really just desperate at the forward position in terms of just not having much depth there. I know Gallo's been starting at the 4, more so a 3 in my eyes. I mean, they've been having Landry Shamet play the 3, who's more so a 2. They have Harrell off the bench. He's playing 4, but also mainly 5. So this is going to give them some more depth. I think Chandler does get some nice run here, maybe somewhere around 18 to 19 minutes in his first day, and we'll see from there. For Houston, it's just Shumpert and Fareed. Fareed's out, going to give more minutes to Nene. It's going to give more solid minutes to a guy like Capella against this Philly team without Embiid. So that's pretty big for Capella. Klay Thompson is probable today. Luke Kennard is probable. Zaza Pachulia being out. This isn't huge, right? He hasn't really been relevant for about 2 months since Andre Drummond sat out a few games. But Andre Drummond has been playing around mid-30s minutes with no backup center, no viable backup center. Against Chicago, who is putting out there Robin Lopez, who is probably no match for Andre Drummond, whose price doesn't change. The man is 8,800, continues to go for 50 to 60 point nights, pretty much bi-weekly, if not more, hitting the high 50s to 60s at this point. And his price comes down. So 8,800 for a guy who has no center behind him going up against Robin Lopez. Zaza being out probably bumps the minutes for a guy like Drummond to closer to 37, which I just love today against Chicago. Maxi Kleber's questionable. His minutes and his role in this offense has just been diminished as the emergence of Dwight Powell has come about. Powell's price up a lot, though. Tristan Thompson remains out, and Ante Zizic just questionable. If Zizic's just out, you're going to get more minutes, and you're going to get a starting Larry Nance, more solid minutes for Kevin Love at the 5. Larry Nance getting some time at the 4 and the 5. So that's it for injuries. There's a lot. The main things to kind of take away from this are the fact that if Ricky Rubio, he's doubtful if he is indeed out, as we would expect based on that doubtful tag, you're going to be getting Joe Ingles playing the point, Donovan Mitchell, and just minutes bump for both of those guys. Drew Holiday out, it just makes Alfred Payton an even more solid play at the point guard spot, and Frank Jackson a very solid play at the shooting guard spot, especially since Etuan Moore is out as well. And then just finishing it up, Zaza Pachulia being out, not a huge thing, but it will stabilize Andre Drummond for maybe closer to his minutes ranges of the upper 30s, around 37. Quickly, before we move on, I will quickly shout out Draft Dashboard. They're helping me out. I have an announcement to make. I will be on a radio show on Sirius XM. I will be getting the news out for 4 weeks. I will be on there doing a 15-minute daily fantasy sports segment for the NBA. I'm working on the show now. It's going to air next Friday. It will then air every Friday. I will get you guys the time. But Draft Dashboard has helped me kind of fund my way onto that show. You have to pay for your spot. So I just want to return the favor by doing some promotion for them. That was kind of our deal. So here you go. Draft Dashboard, something that I've been using pretty much for 2 to 3, 4 months now since the NFL season. And just kind of checking it with my baselines for my projection system, seeing what they have at their numbers, making sure maybe I'm off, maybe what I could switch. They have ownership now, which is huge. That's something that just got rolled out, I think, over the past month and a half. What it is just another projection site, one, but it's also a way to reduce your research time. If you're building your own sheets, if you're using mine, you want to check them here, or if you just want to have a dashboard to look at. So it's fantasy points per game, their minutes, similar to what I use. Usage projection, which is huge, is how much they're involved in the offense, how much they're touching the ball, their opponent's rank. You have their defensive ranks right here. All of this stuff just gets pulled. You can watch players here, which is these little targets, and it pretty much makes them into your player pool. Once they're in your player pool, you can go over there and you can sort them all out. This is what I like to do, condense it down for 30 players in a player pool if I'm playing GPPs. If I'm playing cash, get it down to about 15 and then make my decisions from there. And then you can optimize them. They have a lineup optimizer. You can do all these things. It's very nice. You can see which lineups kind of flow better, how maybe you're missing putting a power forward into that slot if he's a center, and getting extra guys into your lineups. Their NBA cheat sheet, let you know some of their plays that they're liking and just studs and mid-range options. So it pretty much just lets you know in every single price range a spot that's popping in their projection system. So definitely check them out. The nice thing is that if you use the link below, it's a promotion that has ended overall, but if you use my link below, I've been able to kind of grandfather that promotion 30 days for $1. Again, I always say this, trying to give you guys as much value as possible, giving you guys 30 days of a tool that helps you for $1. What is that? three pennies a day to invest. You guys are investing money into DFS. You might as well spend 3 pennies a day. So that's just how I look at it. You can get that down below. Let's move over into target offense, which is a sheet that probably is the most popular sheet that I have. A lot of people ask for it. Again, if you want this sheet and you want it as an Excel doc, you just have to go over to Patreon. I put screenshots of this sheet both on my Twitter, which you can see right there. You can follow me. I encourage you to do so. I talk about DFS throughout the day. And then you could also follow it, and you can find that sheet in the Discord, which is where the community is just blossoming over there. So definitely check that out. So what the target offense sheet does is it pretty much gives us a look at how players in specific teams and then at specific players on those teams are favoring or disadvantaged today. So, I mean, what you have here is you're going to have each team, their opponent, their pace, which is just possessions per game. So possessions per game pretty much just mean how many times the team touches the ball per game. The more times that they touch the ball is just going to lead to more pure scoring opportunities, just field goal percentages. And then it's going to lead to more assists, blocks, and just other ways to accumulate fantasy points. Double-double upside, triple-double upside, the more possessions you have. Usually we have these possessions correlating with what the team total is for that day. So the fastest possession game on the day is OKC, who has been playing at the fastest pace since the new year against the Clippers. So a pace-up spot for the Clippers, who are already a high-paced team. And as you can see, like we said, they do have the highest projected total of the day, 236.5. I like to target games that are 220 or more. So that's just something that you guys can look at. You want to look over here. This is defense versus position over the last 30 days in terms of Draftkings points allowed. I had a question the other day about why the power forward and center positions are skewed, meaning why there's more points here than the small forward and then maybe even the point guard. The reason for that is just centers in general score more in DFS on Draftkings because, like we already said, they get more opportunities. What this is using is a per 48-minute basis. So just a whole game. So you're going to have both the starting center as well as the backup centers getting factored into this. So if you want to just look at a few of them, so in terms of it's just green is a place that you should target. So right here is the best position on this slate for the point guard, and it's going to be Miami against Cleveland. Cleveland is pretty bad defending the point guard position. Richie, I keep calling him Richie Sexton. He is Colin Sexton. This is not baseball, although it is close. So Colin Sexton, not the greatest at defending that position. They had Alec Burks, not the greatest at defending that position. Miami, though, is not a position that I really want to go for. I like Justice Winslow when he played the Hawks, although today I'm not too sure that I really want to get there. If Dragic, the Dragon Goran, is out, then it helps a little bit, but not really sure that I need to force that. Next up, and these ones are all pretty close. You could have Dallas, so Luka's in a good spot against Orlando and DJ Augustine. Orlando's a great defensive team, but more so against the bigs, against the power forward spot, and mainly Vooch at the center spot, one of the best defensive centers. You're going to have Kemba, who's in an ideal matchup today against Washington and Thomas Satoransky. I actually really like this matchup for Kemba. His price is pretty low. I think he provides great value, as we'll see on the next page. Some other things that I like to look at, like I said, I like to get as many point guards in my lineup. How do you do that? You put them in the point guard slot, then you put them in the shooting guard slot. A lot of point guards are shooting guard eligible. I'd rather have a guy controlling the point, more assists, more driving opportunities, transition points, than a guy who's going to be a spot-up shooter like Klay Thompson. So yeah, I like to get as many point guards into that range. Small forwards, I usually try and avoid as much as possible as well. Shooting guards and small forwards, I try and limit in my lineup. How do you limit a small forward if you have to play one? Well, a lot of power forwards are small forward eligible. Tobias Harris, small forward eligible. Jonathan Isaac is a power forward, small forward eligible. There's actually pretty much all of them are small forward eligible or at least center eligible. So that's how I like to do that. In terms of power forwards, we like to get more of these into our lineups because they're closer to the basket. At least I do. Some of the best matchups on today's slate, Washington against Marvin Williams and Charlotte. So you're going to get Jeff Green, depending on who starts out there, Jabari Parker, two guys that I'm interested in because of this matchup. Bad overall team against that power forward spot. Charlotte, we can talk also about against Washington today, and it's not going to pop as much, but it's kind of in that it's not an average matchup today. It's actually a little bit above average, but based on the color chart, you might think it is average. But you're going to get Cody Zeller playing over 30 minutes a game against this Washington team that's been pretty bad at rebounding. With Bobby Portis out there, they've improved a little bit, but it's not something I'm scared of with Zeller at a very favorable price. And then you can see the thing that's really standing out here is OKC against the Clippers. The Clippers we've been targeting, at least if you've been following me, all year in terms of the position. Well, today you get Steven Adams, a guy who's been underwhelming when they have Paul George and Russell Westbrook both out there stealing pretty much all of his rebounding opportunities. You're going to get him against Zubac and the Clippers today, who are just dreadful against the position, allowing by far the most fantasy points over the last 30 days on average. It's been 64 to the center position, so over 48 minutes, they're allowing 1.5 points per minute, close to that. For Steven Adams, a guy who's very serviceable, always at a favorable price, right around 6K or below. It's definitely an interesting spot. Something else to look at would be Toronto against New Orleans. Anthony Davis playing limited minutes out there. Even Jahlil Okafor being questionable now, it's going to make it even more favorable. But who do you go to? You have Marcus Gasol, you have Serge Ibaka, who went off last time. Right now, I have the minutes split for 26 for Ibaka, 22 for Gasol. That gives you the 48 total. I'm not really sure what to do with them. It's going to depend on who starts. If we get starting news of Ibaka, that's where I'll leave them at. If we get starting news of Gasol, I'll probably swap them to 26 Gasol, 22 Ibaka. But these are good spots. It's just hard to really pinpoint, are they as favorable as they seem, because there's multiple guys playing that position. Denver against Golden State. So Jokic is in a pretty good spot tonight. Golden State, even with Boogie Cousins out there, has been a favorable spot for centers all year long. Pretty nice total at 234. Game should be pretty close with only a 6 to 7 point spread. Yeah, so those are just some things that I'm keying in on. Again, this will be in the Discord. Hop into the Discord. Right now, if you're not in the Discord, stop the video. Literally just, if you're on your phone, click the little arrow. If you're on your laptop, just scroll a little bit on YouTube and just click, get in there. People, I'm talking already so much. Golf, the golf chat's been kind of blowing up. I want to learn golf, so something that I need to spend time on when I get that time. NBA is just kind of a year-round thing, so definitely hop up in there. And I would just like to shout out this again. Again, if you just have interest in projections and using projections to increase your game, they will not make you a profitable player on their own. But if you're already keeping up with the news, if you already know the game of basketball and what goes into lineup construction, watching my videos, getting as many centers into your lineup, point guards, depending on the slate, if it is stars and scrubs, whatever it might be, bankroll management, projections will be a big piece of that puzzle. I use them every single day to I get my own player pool on my own. I use the projections to filter out my player pool, so I'm trying to get rid of some of my biases on players, whether getting more people into the player pool or out, and then I go from there and I update it throughout the day. It's definitely nice, so definitely check that out. Just another plug for it. Shout out the plug. So let's go over to my early interest, and let me tell you, these are as early of interest as it gets. They are very limited. They are not going through the lineups. I woke up this morning. I did this at 6 a.m. for an hour and a half. I made sure the data was good, got the projections, first run out to the people who are on Patreon and the Discord. And then I kind of just went through and saw guys who were either underpriced, who were in interesting situations, already hit on some of them. This is definitely not a complete list. So, and it's not in any ranking order. So Joe Ingles, and you can see here value. This is getting pulled right from my chart as of right now. So this is kind of a freebie for you guys, value. You would get this for every single player. There's obviously, these are not by far any means the best values on the slate. Some of them are good values, but there's more on the projections tab, which is right over here. You can't see it, but if you do want it, again, hit up Patreon. But in terms of value just means points per dollar, how good they are based on their price. You're always looking for guys. For me, I'm looking at 4x plus 10 in cash and 6x for tournaments. This is a median projection, so this is more so for cash. A lot of people use 5x if you want to use that. 5x just means their salary. If it's 5.8, 5.8 times 5. If they hit that, then they hit 5x. If they're over that, then it's going to be even better value. So value plays just mean guys who are underpriced based on their production or projected production. It doesn't mean that if you're using a projection system, you should plug all 8 of your guys to the top 8 values. No, because then you're missing out on some higher projected players. The values does not mean they're going to get the most points. It just means based on their price, they're a pretty good bargain. So Joe Ingles at 5,800. I see his minutes with Ricky Rubio going from probably his average of, we can see right here, 31, closer to 34 today. That's pretty good value, especially if he touches the ball at the point guard position. Andre Drummond, I don't get it. The man's 8,800. I don't know how this guy isn't at 9,500 yet. Draftkings has been undervaluing a lot of guys all year long by $500 or more. Andre Drummond at 8,800 is just dirt cheap. He should be 93 to 9,400. I would say even 9,500. As he just continues to go for 45 plus points, and a lot of the time 55 plus points. He goes for 60 plus the other night, and he's still 8,800 against Chicago and Robin Lopez with no Zaza behind him. Not a huge factor, but also a factor, maybe another minute or two for Drummond in this situation. I love it. Kevin Durant, this is mainly a price thing. He's now below 9K. I just noticed it. Maybe he has been before. I don't think that's true, but at 8,900, it seems very good in a high-scoring matchup against Denver. Alfred Payton, we already talked about. 5K flat. This guy is just way too cheap. Is that the actual price? Is this pulling right? Like, I'm actually 5K flat. It's just too cheap. Look, some of that is because DraftKings factors in matchup, and this is a very tough matchup, but there's no Drew Holiday. They haven't factored that in yet. He is going to be the guy out there. You could maybe say his assist rate goes down without Drew Holiday. I haven't looked on NBA Wowie yet because Drew Holiday's an awesome scorer. I don't think it would factor in too much, especially at that price. Kendrick Williams at $4,000. He's just too cheap for a guy who, look, minutes per game, this is 20 factoring the whole season, but since he's actually been playing, it's closer to 31 to 32. I see him getting 34 today without Etuan Moore and without Drew Holiday. Kemba Walker, 8,100 is too cheap. This guy's got to be around 8,500 in my mind, if not higher. 8,100 against Washington today in this beautiful matchup. He's going to get 35 minutes. I have him, I think, right now at 36. I love it. James Harden, his price is finally coming down. He can maybe touch below 11K. One of the only guys who's pretty sturdy out there now in terms of price with this LeBron minutes limit coming on or the Anthony Davis minutes limit. So I do like James Harden 11K if you can get up there based on the value. Again, Etuan Moore being out opens up value for Kendrick Williams. Drew Holiday opens up value for Peyton. There is some value if you can get up there. I haven't done lineup construction yet, so I'm not positive. Kyle Lowry at 7,100 just seems a little bit too cheap for me. His points per game is 38, so he's priced below his average, which I always like to look at guys there and see why. I think his matchup is pretty fine against New Orleans and Elfrid Payton or Frank Jackson, whoever it might be. Jeremy Lamb, $5,600. Price comes up about $400 since he was very underpriced and he became pretty chalky. I still think he's a decent play here against Washington, especially if he does continue to see this 30 to 33 minute roll that he has been recently. Bradley Beal, 9,500. It's interesting because this guy's he's been getting 40 minutes a game. Right now, my projections, I think I have him in for 38, which is a lot of minutes to play. And he's a shooting guard, which goes against a lot of the things that I like. But he's a shooting guard who demands the ball. He will control the point at points. He will drive. So he's a little bit different from a Klay Thompson, from a JJ Redick. But at the same time, when John Wall's out there, he's pretty much a shooting guard. But John Wall isn't out there. 9,500 though, he's interesting to me just because of the minutes he's getting in the matchup in this game in general, but I'm not sure I really want to go there at 9,500. It seems steep. Steven Adams, we talked about, great matchup against the Clippers, not much more to say. We talked about Serge Ibaka. I like him more than Marc Gasol, especially if he does draw the start. Jeff Green and Jabari Parker, both guys who play the power forward spot, and a great matchup for whichever one starts I like more, but Jabari Parker, if he doesn't start off the bench, he's a good play. I'd say more so in tournaments. I never like to get guys who don't have stable minutes coming off the bench in my lineup in cash because, look, it's just too risky. Clint Capella at 6,700 without anybody behind him today in terms of there's no Kenneth Faried there. 6,700 is a good price for him against Philly with no Joel Embiid, with no Boban still out. Tobias Harris, speaking of Philly, he's going to be starting at the 4 once again. Should see some 5 minutes as he has been. He saw more when Bolden was out. With Bolden being back now, 7,400 is still a decent price for Tobias Harris. And as you can see there, it does draw a decent value at 5.4. Again, these values come right over from the player projections, which if you do want them, you can just hop on over to Patreon. Thank you. So yeah, that's pretty much it. These are early interest. These are like not picks or anything like that. It is early in the morning, so a lot of this is going to change throughout the day. So that's early interest. Here's another look at the target offense. I'll put this in the Discord, just a screenshot, a file for the Patreon people. And then the injury dashboard. So just quickly, I'll just say, once again, Draft Dashboard, check them out. They're helping me, so I want to help them. You can build lineups here. We kind of just talked about it already. So just check them out for 30 days. It's just $1. There's a link down below. Then you can, on Twitter, I'll be posting as well the target dashboard. So that link's just right next to me, just a little Twitter @sign. So get in the Discord for sure. Thank you guys so much. This is just for today's slate, 9-game slate. It's going to be fun. We have 6 to 9 game slates for the next week or two. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace.